And it's, oh, so it's pretty miraculous what they've done. And I, after each surgery, I, was questioning, did I do the right thing? What if this doesn't work? Um, and I had to really release all of that and trust the process. I had talked to two people who had had this done, and they were quite happy with the results. And I have friends who knew other people who had it done who were also very happy with the results. And so I thought, I need to trust this and I need to let it go. And I'm glad I did. I still have a hard time energy level. Like today, I had no idea I was going to be so tired today. When I talked to Marianne last week, I was telling her about this. She said, if this doesn't work for you, let me know and we'll do something else. And at the time I thought I was going to be fine. And then I woke up today and I don't know, maybe about an hour or so after I woke up, I went back to bed again, which is so not like me. I mean, I used to hit the floor running, um, but not these days. I've been told to rest and recuperate, and I'm really trying hard to follow that advice. So that's the story up until now. So some things that I am continuing to learn is that all feelings remain present until they are fully felt. All feelings, negative, positive. The longer I deny the feeling, the longer I'm going to have it. And hear me, I'm not saying there's a difference between denying the feeling and denying the power of the feeling, denying that the feeling has any power over me. Okay, I can deny that the feeling has power over me, but I have to melt into the feeling. And I know when Chris died, I wanted to die. I really did not want to be here anymore. And it took me a long time. In fact, I'll tell you, it took me about 6 years. I took myself to a place just west of Fort Collins, actually west of Loveland, Sunrise Ranch. I was looking for a place. It was the 6-year anniversary of his passing. And I was looking for a place because I had gotten a message to take myself on a personal private retreat. And so I was looking for a place to do this. And I had called 2 places, neither of which had any empty rooms for somebody to come stay that weekend. And so I came in here. This is my meditation room. And I sat down and I thought, okay, what am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to go? And that was when Sunrise Ranch downloaded into me. And so I called them, they had space. And I said, can I come with the understanding that I don't want anybody to talk to me and I don't want to be bothered by anything? And the woman said, sure, of course. And so I went, and it was Labor Day weekend, 2010. And because it was Labor Day weekend when the crash happened. And so I went, and it was really quite amazing. I brought 2 things with me. I brought my Science of Mind magazine, so I'd have something to read, my daily guides, and I also brought my journal. I didn't bring anything else to read because I didn't want any distractions. And this place has hiking trails all around it, and they have, there was a building that I went and sat in. There are various buildings around the property. They grow their own food. And so the food that I ate there those 2 days was delicious. And they also have a big, not a major labyrinth, huge labyrinth out on the lawn. And so I walked the labyrinth, and when I got to the center, I mean, it was big enough for me to lay down in it. And so I just laid there with my eyes closed. And Marianne knows this, but not everybody does. Labor Day weekend in Colorado is usually really beautiful. My favorite time of year here is fall. And so I was just laying there in the labyrinth. And during those days that I was there, I prayed, I talked to God, I got mad at God, and I talked a lot to Chris. And I learned something that, well, I kind of always knew that he was okay, but he really told me that he was okay. And it helped tremendously for me to have done that. So that was one of my many surrenderings. Um, and so the other thing that happened as a result of that was Don and I had wanted to go to Santa Fe, and we had our home on the market, our home in Texas on the market. And we were thinking we should sell the home before we, take a little vacation to Santa Fe. But it was taking a little longer than what we had anticipated for our house to sell. And we finally said, screw it, we're going to Santa Fe. And so we did. And Don had signed us up for a spa package at this hotel. And I'm not sure why he did that, because he doesn't do spas or massages or anything. I guess he did it for me. And so the first person I see that night that we get there is this woman. Oh, let me back up a little bit. 20 minutes after we got in our room, our realtor called from Texas and said, I have a contract. So we said, fax it over, we'll sign it, and that'll be that. So that happened. And then that night, I went down to the spa. I had called and made a reservation for some kind of wrap. I don't remember what it was, but it wasn't a turkey wrap. But anyway, the woman who was working with me said to me, she said, I sense that there's something really wrong or going on with you. And so I told her a little bit about Chris, and she said, make an appointment for a massage with me tomorrow. She said, I think I can help you. Little did I know, the woman's a medium, and she contacted Chris, and he told her that I had to let go because I was holding him up. And so she also told me what a lot of different things, I listed them in one of my journals, a lot of different things that he wanted us to do. One of which was to bury one of his toys in our backyard in Texas, because that was where he grew up. He was in kindergarten when we moved there. And I don't know, to just enjoy Colorado and enjoy the grandkids, and just a lot of different uplifting kinds of things. And so I felt really good about having met her, our trip to Santa Fe. And then the other thing that happened, well, there were various things that happened as a result of Chris's passing, but one of the other things was that I reconnected with former in-laws. One of the things that really bothered me about divorcing my former husband was that I really liked his family, and I didn't want to lose his family. But sometimes, when you divorce somebody, you lose everybody. My sister-in-law's youngest daughter was getting married the weekend after we moved into our house here in Colorado. And Don and I were invited to the wedding. I was actually her godmother. And so we went to the wedding. It was up in Breckenridge in the mountains. And somehow or other, I started talking to the minister, the officiant at the wedding. And I thought she was somebody from where they lived in Colorado Springs and came up to Breckenridge to do the wedding. But she wasn't. I found out that she lived in Breckenridge and all she did was officiate weddings. Just kind of lit up. And I said, how do I get to do that? And so she told me, and it was through Universal Ministries. You all may have heard of them. Send in your $10 and you too. Their philosophy is that we all minister to each other. And when I read their philosophy, I thought, that's true. We do, don't we? And so I did that. Well, then in the process of doing that, I thought, I really want to be an ordained minister. I don't want to just have the title. I want to have some of the knowledge as well. And so that led me to One Spirit Interfaith Seminary. And the way I learned about One Spirit was because there was an ad in Science of Mind magazine back in, this must have been 2015 when I saw the ad. And I was kind of excited and I pulled up their website. And then Don and I both listened to an introductory talk that they had. And he walked away and I said, well, what do you think? And he said, sounds like it's right up your alley. So the following year I applied. I didn't apply that year because he had a knee surgery coming up, knee replacement, and I wasn't sure what that was going to involve. And right now I'm really glad I didn't apply at that time. So anyway, when I did apply, I was accepted. That process was really something. Kind of have to go back through your spiritual life and relay all of what you had gone through and what you had done to support yourself spiritually. This whole essay that they wanted, and that was just one question on the application. So going back to surrender, there are times when we tell ourselves lies about certain situations. And Coote, in his book, The Magic of Surrender, offers us 6 questions that he calls the truth process. And the questions are, number 1, what lies am I telling myself? Number 2, what am I pretending not to know? Number 3, what is my payoff for staying stuck? Number 4, what has the lie been costing me? Number 5, what am I afraid might happen if I tell the truth? And number 6, what right action can I take today? I noticed that Marianne is recording this, so if you didn't get all that down, don't worry about it because it's in the recording. It's important to remember that surrender is not denial. Surrender is facing reality. And surrender isn't being powerless. Surrender is empowering ourselves. To surrender is to be open to what we don't know. It's to stop trying to force our way. It's the art of allowing. And I love that word, allowing. Allowing things to happen, making space for the universe to show up, acknowledging that we weren't ever in control in the first place. It's an art of letting go. And as an art, I believe it takes practice. And speaking for myself, it takes a lot of practice because I do like to be in control. So yeah, instead of forcing things to go my way, I can consider myself to be more like water and flow into the shape of whatever container I happen to be in. When I think my plans aren't working my way or the way I thought they should, I could ask, what better ideas does the universe have for me? Am I open to something better? Can I trust that if my plan doesn't work out, something better will come down the pike for me? It's not non-action. It's not doing nothing or not taking responsibility. It's partnering with life, making space for life to show us where it wants to go, where it wants us to go. So surrender what is not in my control and surrender to what is in my control. And so I go back to my son. What was in my control was, the person who killed him, it took him a year to acknowledge his guilt. And in that year, we made many trips out to Denver for hearings. And we were told not to show, that it wasn't a good idea to show emotion in the courtroom, which is very strange to me. So what I did was I had my journal out all the time and I just wrote down whatever was going on because that kept me from shouting out, kept me from losing it totally. So that's what I did. And then when the person finally did admit his guilt, it was up to us whether we wanted to go for a jury trial or 8 years. And Don and I were both thinking, jury trials are iffy. Find 12 people who will all agree on the same thing. And so we really were okay with 8 years. Chris's dad wanted to go for 9, but the reality of the situation is 9 years versus 8 years in prison is only a few months. It's not a full year. And so he went to prison for 8 years, and we were always made aware of what was going on with him. And we would go down to some parole hearings down in Canyon City. And then after, I think it was about 4.5 years, he was released on parole, and it was supposed to be 5 years of parole. What we learned in this process is that 5 years of parole doesn't really mean 5 years either. It was, I don't know how long it was, maybe 3 or so. It wasn't full 5 years, but they let us know when he was going to be out of parole and out of the system. And so we wrote a letter, Don and I did, to his parole officer to share with him. And we wanted him to know 3 things. We wanted him to know that we forgave him. I guarantee you, he didn't wake up that morning and say, gee, I think I'll go kill Chris Mansfield today.
Right.
We wanted him to never, ever drink and drive again. And we wanted him to share his experiences to keep other people from doing the same thing. And I honestly don't know if he received the letter or not, because we have never, ever heard from him. We did, however, hear from his brother, who at one of the hearings approached Don. His brother is a carpenter, and he wanted to know if it would be okay with us if he sent us the triangle box to put Chris's flag in from the Air Force. And Don and I both said yes, of course we would. And so Joe wrote us a letter basically apologizing for his brother. And yeah, it was pretty amazing. So we were glad we did that. Very glad we did that. So in doing all of this, I was thinking about our master teacher, Jesus, and wonder, did he really ever heal anyone? Or did he call upon the divine one that lives inside each and every one of us to be present, fully present for that person? Did he perform miracles, or did he realize and speak to the divinity that is within each of us? Might we consider that all of life is a miracle? When I was a single mom back in the 80s, I was selling art and custom framing on commission. And I remember this one Christmas, I did not have finances socked away for any kind of Christmas for my son, who was only 3 at the time. And I really wanted to have Christmas for him. Well, that year in December, a company that I had been working with since that summer finally decided that they needed artwork, and they wanted to have the funds off of their books before the year ended. So they wanted to pay me in full up front for the artwork that they were ordering. And so there it was, Christmas for Chris. Worked out really well, and I am grateful. Then when we got the word to move to Texas, Marianne knows how hard this was for me. When Don first called me, he said, well, I got the word and we're going to Arlington. And when he first said that to me, I'm thinking, Virginia, East Coast, not far from family. My family is in upstate New York. I can do this. And then he said, Texas. And I said, what? And then I'm pretty sure I said something like, they killed Kennedy, don't you? And so, I'm from New York. New Yorkers don't move to Texas. It's just a fact, And then growing up, we were all Giants fans. And the only time you heard the word Cowboys in my household was when my dad said, those damn Cowboys, So anyway, but there we went to Texas. And actually, the night before Chris and I flew out, I think we stayed at your house, didn't we, Marianne? Yeah, yeah. Um, so anyway, we get to Texas, and first of all, we had Don and I flew out there one weekend, and Chris stayed with Roxanne that weekend, Marianne. Um, and we had to find a house in that weekend. And I had never done anything like this before. Don had been with the JCPenney company for a lot of years before this. And so we had this one weekend to find a house. We found a house that I thought was out of our budget. And I kept being reassured by Don, it'll be okay. It'll be okay, you know? And all I could think of was, are you nuts? But anyway, so we put a down payment on this house. And the day that our movers were unloading the truck, one neighbor came over with a tray of breads and cold cuts for sandwiches and condiments and chips, because she knew we wouldn't have any food and it was going to be a while before everything got unpacked. And so she did that. And then another neighbor brought over firewood for our fireplace. And so how extraordinarily kind. What a great neighborhood we moved into. And so it's another support for the fact that miracles abound. Miracles are bound. They're all around us. And it's mostly our minds that like to complicate things. And so the question is, can we train our minds to be still and just show up and say yes? Yes to whatever life gives us. What are we listening to? What is our guidance within? Because it's always there. For me, sometimes my life is too full and noisy to listen to it. And so I miss out. Last year, I don't remember when it was. It might have been in May. I think it was earlier in the year than that. But I kept getting a message that I was supposed to start a meditation group. And I just really wasn't sure I wanted to do that. Part of me was a little nervous, like, is anybody going to be even a part of this group? But it just wouldn't go away. And so I thought, okay, fine, I'll do it. It's talking to my voice there. And so I did it. I followed that guidance, and lo and behold, people came. If you put it out there, people will come. Another time, this was in the summer of 2004, going back a ways, I received a very clear message that I was supposed to sign up for the principalship certificate classes at the University of Texas in Arlington. And I don't even know to this day. Well, I have a theory about why I received that guidance, and I'll share that with you in a minute. But I thought, okay, I'll do this, because it was almost like the divine was standing right next to me and saying, you will do this. And so I thought, okay, I didn't want to be a principal. I didn't think that was in my future. But one of the first things I did was call a friend of mine, Mary, and talk her into signing up for these classes too. And so she and I both signed up for these classes. And so there I was in the midst of these classes, because they started in August and the crash that took Chris's life happened in September. And I have since then decided that the reason the divine told me to take these classes is because I needed to have something else for my mind to be working on when all of this other stuff was going on. And so I'm grateful. And the other thing that happened is I did want to know what principals knew, because I worked with a lot of principals in my work as kind of an administrator. And so all I had to do was listen and follow directions. Bless you. So do we have enough quiet time in our lives to listen to that still small voice? Do we take time at the beginning of each day to just listen? Do we take ourselves out of the way? As I had said before, and as Coote says in his book, love is the greatest force in the world. And we all know that we need to love ourselves first. So our challenge is to surrender to that love. As I walked my journey, there've been various folks with whom I've had challenges. And through reading this book, it's been brought home to me once again that in every relationship, there's something for me to learn. Sometimes my learning is about what not to do or say. Sometimes it's just about learning to listen to someone else without commenting. And sometimes it's about me setting my own boundaries. Um, my latest lesson, I do believe, has been about boundaries. It's about not only setting them for myself, but respecting other people's boundaries. And, being Italian, I haven't always been really good at that. Um, but I also have been a people pleaser a lot of times in my life. And I know that that's not as important as self respect. So my curiosity about a certain relationship has led me to this lesson. And I'm thankful that it's not too late for me to learn it and move on. And the lesson I'm talking about is boundaries. There's a reason why people show up in our lives. We can all learn whatever lessons we need to learn, and then we can move on. And sometimes moving on will mean a change in the relationship. Sometimes it will mean releasing the relationship. And sometimes it could even mean a better relationship, a closer relationship. We don't always know, but we need to sit quietly and receive the guidance and follow it. He says also in his book that relationships are a transformational portal to the highest version of ourselves, and that the only thing we have to do is love. The only thing. In The Little Prince, it is said, "It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye." I love that quote and want to remember it more. So, along with that, it's important to remember the little things and the importance of the little things. Um, there's sacredness and holiness in every moment. Right now, I do a little bit of teaching one-on-one with some students who might be behind grade level in reading or math. And when I first started doing this, I remember telling Don, this is not quite what I had in mind for this point in my life. It doesn't feel very ministerial, And his comment to me, for which I'm very grateful, he said, "What could be more important than teaching a child to read?" And I thought, man, am I lucky or what? To have somebody say that to me. Um, so, yeah. And when I'm listening to a counselee in a spiritual counseling session, it's really important to really listen. One of the things that was brought up in seminary was that true listening involves an open heart, um, eye contact, and totally listening with our ears as well. And there's a Chinese what's the word, figure, for lack of, I can't come up with a word right now, but that means listening, and it includes the symbols for all of those things. So I guess want to end this with, may we all of us, embrace every moment of our lives, surrender what we no longer need, and move forward with the guidance that we are given. Thank you.
Thank you.